Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for ICONversations. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash that like button. We have 5 of our amazing icons on the stage today. They represent the top 3 to 6% earners in the company globally. And today we have the amazing Scott Ziegler from Saskatchewan, Scott Lisa from British Columbia, Andrea Crouch from Arizona, Glenn Bartlett from New Jersey, and our moderator today is TJ Gaussman from Ohio. TJ, you want to take it away?
I would love to. Thank you.
Awesome, man.
Thanks everybody for taking the time to be here. The people on stage and the people listening. It's awesome that our company does this. It's very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to go in order here if that's okay. So I want to talk to everybody. If we can just do like a 1 minute, just talk about where you are, how long you've been in the business, and what your business looks like today. So Glenn, do you want to go ahead and start and give us an idea on what you're up to?
Sure. So I am located in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, closer to the Manhattan area. Actually, this morning we just had the fourth earthquake we've had since I've been alive. Basically, for myself, I work on residential real estate, but I try to we do some developments that include affordable housing, mid-rise, multifamily. I've been in the business. This is going to be my 11th year now. Been with EXP for about 5 of those 11 years. I love the company, love everything it stands for, and I have a small group myself that we kind of branched off. Some to EXP commercial. I'm still here myself, so we just kind of work directly with clients, build stronger relationships with the people that matter in our circle of influence, and we try to take everything day by day with the turns that come in front of us.
That's awesome. And we're going to dig in a little bit later, kind of your business, lead generation, and all that fun stuff. So, Andrea, welcome. Can you talk to us a little bit about your business?
Good morning. Yes, thanks, TJ. Andrea Crouch in Phoenix, Arizona. And I work with my husband, Brian. We have a small team and have been in the industry since 2006. Been with EXP 5 years, and we have a little team and we all work together.
That's awesome. I'm excited to learn about your business. Okay, we're going to go up to the Canadian Scots. So let's start with Scott L. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. We have 2 Scotts here, but yeah, Scott Lissa. I am based on Vancouver Island here on the west coast of Canada, a little town called Nanaimo, about 100,000 people. Because I'm on an island.
Well, I'm Scott Z, so I'll go.
Hey, Scott Z. I don't think you're hearing us. Scott L was speaking. Are you not hearing us?
My bad. I don't hear nothing.
Oh man. Okay, Scott L, go ahead and continue, and we'll try to get Scott Z's audio stuff
set up. You betcha. So anyhow, yeah, I'm based on an island, so literally a lot of my business is. Oh, sorry. How long I've been an agent? About 6-7 years. I've been with EXP for about 3 and really enjoying the whole digital aspect of the brokerage. Not to mention all the other benefits that come along with working with EXP and my connections across both Canada and the United States. But out here on the island, I have to focus on relocation. So I do a lot of video marketing, a lot of lead generation, and absolutely focus mainly on buyers, to be perfectly honest, not so much sellers. So that's sort of the breakdown of my business. But I'm very happy to live in a place that is quite as beautiful as this. And yeah, happy to be here.
That's awesome. And Scott Z, hopefully we're getting the audio stuff figured out. Can you tell us about you and your business?
Yeah, 18 years in the business, up in the middle of Canada, Saskatchewan. At this point, most of my business is kind of referral or social media and past clients.
And I'm going to go ahead and just ask a few questions while I've got you, Scott Z. So what would you say, 2-part question, what would you say to a newer agent that's just getting started? What would you tell them the one thing that they need to do constantly? And then the second question is, at what point in your career did you build a referral-based business?
So one piece of advice I would give a new agent, and unfortunately, this isn't going to be like instant business, but getting your database started correctly from day one is probably going to, if you think you're going to have a 5, 10, 15, 20-year career, the greatest asset you will ever build is your database. And adding people to it every day, making sure it's clean, making sure it's organized, that will be the biggest source of business for you in the future, which kind of leads into the second question. Sorry, what was the second question again?
At what point did your business become a referral-based business?
All right. So I mean, being in the business for 18 years, obviously it's you can't compute that to a new agent, but I will say that the two things that really have, I think, doubled my business in the last 3 or 4 years is what I just said, marketing to my database. So they get an email from me once a month. It probably should be more, but for now it's once a month. And social media, showing up consistently on social media, I believe has helped me with my referrals as well, because I'm just in front of people. So if you take part one and you build a strong database, you try and connect with them on social, and you get in front of them through social media and through regular communication to your database, in a short amount of time, you will never lack for business.
I think those are great tips. Scott L., you had mentioned that you have more of a buyer-based business. How do you drive those leads, and is that your intent to keep it that way, or is this a transition?
To be perfectly honest, I don't lack for listings. It's just not really what my focus is, to be perfectly honest, though I have the tools to kind of service those clients. A lot of my business has to also relate to what I enjoy doing. So I enjoy obviously being out in nature a lot. I love hiking. Again, being in the Pacific Northwest, it's absolutely beautiful out here. But to attract these buyers, I do a lot of video marketing. This also attracts a lot of sellers. But the fact of the matter is if we're in a market that has very low stock, finding the listings can be more competitive. So really, when I'm looking to target buyers, it's a little bit easier due to the fact that I'm in a place that has such a high desire, like people have a want to move here so much. And because a lot of these people are doing relocation, it allows me to actually use a lot of technical tools to work with them from afar. So a lot of the people I work with actually are buying sight unseen in a lot of situations. So a lot of what I'm doing is using social media, YouTube, other video platforms, not to mention, as Scott was saying before, Scott Z in Saskatchewan, utilizing my database and my lead generation tools to really communicate with people, make a connection, and then make myself irreplaceable in that sense. And I have people who are calling me from around the world looking to relocate to Vancouver Island, and utilizing those tools, I can develop that level of trust that lets them know that I'm going to be here working for them. So again, will I transition more into sellers over time? I have some, but at this point, I'm really happy with my business model, which is still a little bit different after your guys's NAR settlement down in the United States. So a little bit different in business models because of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a nugget there, right? Like, do what you love in this business.
Yeah.
And we have an agent on our team that just loves working with buyers. She doesn't like listings, and it sounds like you like both, but buyers you have more fun with. I mean, there's something to be said about that. So Andrea, tell us about like your business. How are we generating leads, and how has that changed since you started in the business in 06?
Yes, thanks, TJ. So when we started, 06 was right as the market was turning, and we just right away dove in. I think actually, as far as advice for a new agent in the same vein of this conversation, at that time, there was a lot of noise in the industry, a lot of agents freaking out that had been in forever. They're like, the sky is falling. And that's all we knew. So diving in, taking care of people. At that time, it was really hard times in their life with short sales and foreclosures. So walking alongside of them, diving in, learning those skills, really built that business and then generated referrals going forward. So, but I think the key is not losing touch with them after that transaction closed. It's not a one and done kind of thing. It was staying in touch with them. And then we became their realtor for their children and, those sorts of things. So it was a rough start, not going to lie. It was rough. And it took a long time to get to closing at that time. So I think having that perspective for new agents of like, it's not a business that is like right now necessarily going to explode. It takes a lot of digging in, focus, staying in touch with people. Like one of the Scots said, just staying in front of people all the time. You have to be visible, keeping those relationships going.
Yeah, that's great. And let me just ask a quick follow-up. So what is your follow-up plan after a deal? What does that look like?
So we have in our database, we have categories for our clients. So like if they've sent us multiple referrals, or if honestly we just adore them, we stay in touch with them. So it's like if they're, let's call it a first class passenger on an airplane, if they're that category, then they're going to hear from us every month. So we're calling them, and our database just automatically tells us that. So we're calling them every month. They're getting a letter in the mail every month, a handwritten personal note. In a perfect world, we're stopping by and dropping something off to them, like a little something or other, some kind of swag, basically. And then they're invited to our client events. So we have 2 to 3 a year of those kind of bigger client events. So it's really staying connected with them and giving them those at their home anniversaries. Okay, let's do a review and talk about your investment and how the value of your home is doing. And so it's kind of that balance of being the professional, but also the fun friend,
Absolutely. I love that. And those people, if you ask them, they're going to say, I have a realtor, not I had a realtor. So,
ooh, that's good, TJ. I like that.
That's awesome, Andrea. So Glenn, can you tell us a little bit about your market specifically and what you're doing to drive leads in it right now?
Sure. So basically, I don't really do any type of lead generation services or anything like that. Kind of do the traditional, I like to call it the kind of Jerry Maguire method. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but it's more of kind of really building relationships with the most important people that are kind of in your own circle and becoming their trusted advisor and being able to grow your business that way, kind of treating their financial portfolio as your own and expanding it, and then kind of getting the loyalty and commitment that is very rare nowadays. So that definitely, I feel like, gives myself the ability to kind of not be at the mercy of, just people that we don't want to be. And besides that, in the residential side, basically, I kind of learned something that I wish I learned earlier if I was going to give advice to any new agents, which would be kind of if you're to try to really get yourself centered into one area, as opposed to what I learned the hard way was spreading myself too thin, which you think it's great, but to be able to really be a single person or even have not a real expansive team, where I've learned that trying to dominate an area or a county, not even really a county, more of like, certain municipalities or towns that are neighboring to each other, and kind of being that go-to person. And for that, myself, I live in the town that I grew up in, so that's kind of been my emphasis on the residential side. But lead generation, what I'm currently doing is, in my area, it's very dense. There are a lot of multifamily and, maybe about 10 feet in between every home. So what I do is kind of more of an old school method, where if I'll get a listing that's there, I will then basically walk the streets and go and present ourselves as being neighborly and giving them the ability to be able to be included into a development that we're working on, And some people are very welcoming. And in real estate, I've learned that is the easiest conversation, is when people are interested and want to know what's going on, what they're going to be looking at out their window. And it's by far at least in my experience, the easiest conversation of trying to generate new business. And even from them, you kind of open up that line of communication. They see that, at least in myself, I try to present myself to be different in a way, where then, they, even if it doesn't work out, they contact you later and they try to say, they kind of see that, you have the ability to get things done, and then you build that relationship in that way. But besides that, for actual following up, shout out to Follow Up Boss, which is what we use. And they are the best, at least in my experience of all the different programs I've used. Gives us reminders and, just basically besides that, taking about an hour a day to call and to be able to sit down and make phone calls. And I heard before many times that they say, if you take an hour or two a day and you consistently make calls, that it will change your life. And that is extremely true.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also think there's a good nugget there, right? We've got to be the resource. Like, we have to be the person that's giving the information that they think of when they think of real estate. So that's a good tip. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with you. I'm just gonna kind of go in this order, if that's okay. So I want to bring up the NAR lawsuit, and I want to bring it up in a very specific way. I think that this has reached Canada. One of the Scots had mentioned it, so obviously this is a known thing. So there's a lot of fear in our industry right now. How do you keep your mindset strong, and what are some things that you would suggest doing to prepare for the upcoming potential change? Glenn, you can start, and we'll run it back.
Sure. To go back to what I was saying, I honestly think that it is better to rely on yourself, in my opinion. Some people will completely disagree with me. Some people run their business off of being a buyer's agent. I have always tried to, even before this, locally very competitive. Inventory is at an insane historical low in our specific area in northern New Jersey. We're like 5 miles from Manhattan. So I'm sure it's like that and everybody on the stage or in the room, but I always felt like it's difficult to be in the mercy of a listing agent. And honestly, I just had this conversation with an old colleague of mine. And when I was at Keller Williams before this, there was just such a trend going on of agents, and I guess you could say super agents, that would probably do deals off market. Everybody would do office exclusives and off markets. And I feel like it gave the consumer the mentality that this can be done one-sided. And I just feel like that, to me, is something that if they were to change that motto and that impression to the consumer, it would change things down the way. I almost feel like this could be kind of an experimental time to see if it has any effect on anybody receiving, true top market for their properties in any way. But I do think that it's in a way kind of self-inflicted, of course, with some of the mega companies, selling leads at an extreme premium and just so on and so forth. But I do think that if people, agents amongst our own colleagues, can be able to kind of show the value on both sides, then I think that it could change.
Andrea, you have a very positive vibe. I can grab this very quickly. So what is your mindset heading into this potential change, and how do we stay above the fear that is going to cripple us?
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you, TJ. That's very nice of you. I am very focused on mindset right now. I think it's so easy to go down the road of so much negativity, so much fear. I have muted for now several of my social media like people I follow, groups I follow. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to, I need the important information. I don't need all the conjecture and what if this and what if that and what if this. I'm digging into the experience that we had when we started in 2006. Right now, this is a new time in our industry. Nobody's been through this before, right? So nobody knows how to move forward. And I think that's exciting. Like, this is a time to be set apart. This is a time to excel. I loved what was her name, Lonnie, in the meeting right before us, just talking about it's an invitation to excel right now, and we are going to be set apart because there's a lot of agents out there just moping around and so afraid. And there's going to be a lot that get out, and I think it's their clients are going somewhere. So it's a time to really stay connected with people. Also, there's so much misinformation in the media that it's a time to provide the accurate information, those facts that we know that they don't. And it's hard, having been in this long. I don't want to be one of those, I've been doing this for 30 years people, but it's hard to go back to when you didn't know anything about real estate. And I was thinking about that this morning, like when I sold my first house and having no clue anything about the process, anything about real estate. And that realtor would speak in realtor language that I did not understand. So I think it's a cautionary tale not to do that. Don't go down this road of explaining all of this stuff to clients that they don't necessarily need to know. They don't care. They need to know that you've got their back. Like whatever's going to happen, you've got their back. I think that's the message to consistently put out.
Yeah, that's great. Glenn, can you mute? I think we're getting noise. Okay. Scott L. So obviously, this didn't technically affect Canada as far as I understand. This was an American Department of Justice situation. Have you felt any ripple from this? Is this a conversation that's being had? What's it like up north?
Well, we have a copycat or a few copycat lawsuits that are existing here in Canada. So CBC is our state-run media. Yes, we have state-run media in Canada. That has been definitely pointing out that the judgment that happens in the United States is going to affect here in Canada. It sets the precedent for what will happen up here. Now, whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. To be perfectly honest, one thing I have to point out is before I was in real estate, I actually did marketing for realtors. Like I was helping them build lead generation systems, lead follow-up systems, all those individual pieces, and primarily down in the United States. And this is the point. Down in the United States, I loved working down there because it was so wide open. The restrictions that exist here in Canada are absolutely absurd. And to be perfectly honest, I even considered when I started my real estate career going down to either Colorado or Texas. It was just markets I understood very well. But I remained here in Canada, in British Columbia, which is one of the most restrictive real estate markets that exist. Now, parallels that you guys are experiencing down there, and I'm going to get a point into some tips here, but parallels that exist already here in British Columbia, because we're even more restricted than the rest of Eastern Canada. We can only represent either a buyer or seller. We can't do what's called dual agency, which you guys have become very familiar with. This is a term that's been beat into our head since 2018, 2019. So if any of these instances come up where we are working with a buyer and we're also representing a seller, or even had a conversation with them, we need to disclose that we have some sort of interest in that trade. The restrictions that exist here through our overseeing, it's called the BCFSA, this is who oversees us in British Columbia, is just absolutely absurd. So we're walking around on eggshells and have been for the last 5 years. So seeing what you guys are going through down in the United States already reminds me of something we've gone through. But what we haven't is the conversation about how commissions are paid. Now, obviously, we have a commission structure up here, and I would say here in British Columbia, we're actually paid considerably less than the average person here in the rest of Canada. Our average is that we would negotiate is probably around 3%, give or take, and that's split between the buyer and seller. Whereas I hear numbers between 4 and 6%, which is just unheard of out here unless we're doing something extraordinary. They're typically lower even than that 3%. So how that'll actually affect us in different provinces across Canada, I'm not necessarily sure, but I will say this as tips go. So I said I work with buyers, and I mentioned earlier that I even have people who buy homes through me sight unseen from across the world. What I've done and what I'm hearing everybody talking about now in the United States, and even in the last meeting that I sat in on, is establishing value. By the time I'm done with people in the first week, they're beating down my door to work with me. They love the process that I follow. They're really engaged in what I'm trying to offer them. And really what this comes down to is establishing a value right off the hop, not letting yourself just be like, yeah, I'll get back to you, I'll set you up a search. Literally saying to them, no, you're not here, I can help you out. Let's do a quick video tour of that place that you like very much. And I go out and I analyze the house, telling them why it's a good idea or a bad idea to purchase that home. I'm focusing on construction. I'm focusing on the neighborhood. I'm focusing on the interior detailing of the home, the mechanical systems, problems that could arise in the future, the wear and tear of the property, just everything you could possibly imagine. And by the time I'm done with them, where can I sign? I want to work with you. And that continues through the process that I work with them. And this is how I get such great Google reviews. People literally state that, we never worked with a realtor like Scott before. He did everything for us. He made sure everything was taken care of. Now, don't get me wrong, this takes a lot away from my personal life, and I'm still building teams. So I love hearing other panelists on the talking about how their teams work, and I really have to learn about those things. But keep in mind how NAR has affected you guys in the United States will really push you to succeed in different ways and make other agents suffer that aren't willing to put in the work. That's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I love that. I think value is going to be the key, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. Scott Z, can you share with us a little bit about your experience? If you're hearing a lot about this, if this is something that that you're aware or concerned about, and then how do you keep your mindset right so you don't let this cripple you?
So no, I didn't hear anything that Scott said, but it hasn't affected us at all yet. And I'm not concerned about it. I echo what somebody else said, that, focus on being a listing agent. If you like working with buyers, great. It's fun sometimes, but settle in your heart that you want to list property, and 99% of your problems in this business will go away. So that was the first thing I would say. And then as far as the mindset, I was actually thinking about this. I give it 2 weeks, a month, 2 months tops, if this thing plays out the way they say it's going to play out, until everybody's back into a new normal. Everybody's in this together, like every agent that's listening and will hear this, and across the United States, the same rules more or less are going to apply to everybody. So think back to COVID. It was like a week, maybe two, and realtors were just back to doing business as normal. Yeah, there were some changes, there were some masks, there were some different procedures. But if worldwide pandemic that shut the globe down only took us out of commission for a week or two until we found our footing, this NAR lawsuit is there's going to become a new normal. Everybody's going to adapt. I think agents are the absolute worst at whipping ourselves into hysteria over problems that are probably never going to occur. The market sucks. Oh, the market's great. Oh, the commission. Oh, there's no buyers. Oh, there's no inventory. We do it to ourselves. So give it a week, give it 2 weeks, give it a month. Once this thing actually, comes onto the ground, and there'll be a new normal, and everybody will go on just as they've always gone on. So I wouldn't stress it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to piggyback on that. One of my favorite quotes is 99% of the worst things that have ever happened to me only happened in my head. Which to me, this is a great example. We're so focused on what the potential results might be, which we can't control, that we don't focus on what actions we can take. So let's think about that, right? Like for us, we are going to have a masterful buyer's presentation, just like Scott L. talked about. When your value is there, it doesn't matter, but you've got to present that now, just like you do at a listing. You can't just walk in and say, hey, I'm TJ, I'm your realtor. Like, no, you're going to have to show your worth. And the cool thing is 80% of agents out there aren't going to be ready. They're going to sit, and they're going to wait, and then they're going to whine. When you can be one of the 20% that gets your bulletproof vest on before you go into a shootout. So start doing it today, because July is coming quickly, and this is probably one of the best opportunities for you as a newer agent potentially to set yourself apart from everybody else. So this is awesome. We should be excited for this, because we have a chance to set ourselves apart, which is cool. Awesome. I loved everything about that, Scott. Okay, so let me jump in. I've got a list here, guys, so bear with me. So I want to talk about presentation a little bit. So we always want to be winners, right? And when we sit in front of a buyer, when we sit in front of a listing, we want to have a masterful presentation. Scott Z, what does your presentation look like? And is there anything that you're doing a little bit differently than most that you feel?
Like, are you talking about a listing presentation?
Sure. Listing presentation, buyer presentation. Are you using technology? Are we old school? Are we using a folder? What are we doing?
Oh, good question. A little bit of run and gun, to be honest, but judging that or based on the fact that most of the business comes sort of by referral, repeat clients. There are some for sale by owner stuff in there, but what one thing that I think that I do that really helps is before I go into a meeting, I send whoever I'm meeting with the comparable properties ahead of time, and I send it in a video form. There's some people are probably familiar with BombBomb. There's another one called Dub that you can record your screen. I mean, you can do it with Loom, you can do it with a couple other ones, and I walk through the comparables and everything. I open up the pictures, I walk through it. To go through 4 or 5 comparables takes me about it's about a 4 or 5 minute video. It gives me a chance to introduce myself. It gives me a chance to kind of show them a little bit what I do. I usually send over a couple of links to my link tree, ask them to check out my social media, check out my YouTube. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I try and social proof myself before I walk into the meeting so that they at least have a little bit of an idea of who I am. And then from there, I don't have a real set presentation. I don't have a standard one that I follow each and every time. But I think if I can just add that one piece, that I like to introduce myself through video, walk through the comparables, send them my my profiles to check out, and just try and social proof myself.
Yeah, that's actually really, really great idea to send them ways that they can see you prior to seeing you. Probably takes away a lot of the rapport building as well because they actually know you a little bit. Scott L, presentations, we can talk about buyer side or listing side. I know you said what you do in the process. What about when you're trying to earn that business early on? How are you presenting and what have you found most successful?
To be most successful nowadays, it's funny, if you follow social media is not social media anymore. It's creator platforms. That's all it is. If you've noticed Facebook, you can have friends, but now you have followers. Everything's about followers these days. Now, don't get me wrong, having a lot of followers is not like having good followers. And what I do is I focus on video once a week if I can, depending on how busy I am. I'm usually putting out anywhere from a 7 to 10 minute video. And these videos are profiles on places you can go, hikes to, neighborhood profiles, things that you need to focus on as buyers and sellers that are specific to my market. Being on Vancouver Island, there's lots of things that occur here. I'm sure just like everywhere else that you work, they're specific to your community. Now, being able to pick out those things and highlight them and promote a video around this means that the early work is already done for me. As the previous Scott was already saying, sending videos is a miracle, which, by the way, I'm going to follow you on that there. I think that's a great idea, doing a small comp presentation and sending that via video. But this would play in well with the fact that people have already probably spent anywhere from 6 minutes, where I've had people say they've watched my entire video library. They just enjoyed it so much. So by the time that I've actually walked in, they know what my personality is like. They know my humor. They know, I don't want to say my swagger, but just the way that I act. So it's in a way that my personality has already aligned with them. Some people are not meant to work together. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of us pride ourselves on being social chameleons, but one of the most painful things is acting in a way you don't like because you're just trying to do business with somebody. So my early work is making sure that I'm promoting my community first and foremost, but I'm the person who's promoting it. So a lot of my listings actually come from the fact that people are like, I really want what this guy is doing. I want to buy into what he's doing. And I've just walked into listings where they just want to understand what the next steps are. There is no presentation at that point. I've done such a good job of setting myself up initially that I don't have to do a presentation. I sit there, I pet their dog, I have a lovely conversation with them, I point out the problems with their home, and then we sign the documents.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that says, if you do a masterful presentation and build a relationship, you really don't need to close, right? It's just natural. It's like, hey,
it's natural.
we fit. Yeah, absolutely. Andrea, you've been doing this 18 years. I love talking to people that have been in the business a little bit longer. What has changed in your presentation from then and now? And then are you using social media at a high level?
Okay, so very different now, I guess, because when I started, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So there was no presentation. I probably didn't even know what a presentation was for like 2 years. I don't know. But now we do have very specific systems around the buyer presentation, meaning a buyer strategy session, as Holly Mayberry talks about it. So when we always have them come into the office unless it is by Zoom. So they come into the office, we have a whole packet for them that we give them and go over the process. And I think that face-to-face, stepping out of the emotion of looking at homes just makes a world of difference. I mean, I guess that's the way the industry is going now, that we have to do that. But that has been something that has set us apart, I think. We do not show houses without having that presentation or consultation. And then for listings, again, we just have our, I'm old school, so I have a brown folder. This is what's funny. Everything is paperless. We are paperless. However, I have one of those brown like file folders, and I have a label. My assistant puts their name and address on the label. There's nothing in the folder. It's empty. The client doesn't know that. They just feel important because they see their name on the folder. I am telling you, it looks like you got your crap together.
That is awesome. That's so fun. Yeah, I like that.
I'm telling you. And inside there is a folder to give to them. But from the minute I walk in the door, I start, I make rapport and stuff, but I take measurements with my like laser tape measure thing. And I think my mentor taught me that. And I just think that helps you kind of claim the listing. Like when you're taking measurements, nobody else is doing that. So I'm telling you, that's just a cool little tip.
Yeah, I love that, right? Find a differentiator, and it can be small, but what is one thing that's, that you're doing that others aren't? And that's the things people remember, because otherwise it all runs together. I love that. Glenn, okay, I'm gonna switch this up a little bit, unless you have something awesome to share about social media listing presentations, buyer presentations. Otherwise, I've got a cool question. So where are you at? Anything there?
Thing that I just wanted to say that's pretty helpful is basically what Andrea said. It is definitely good to make somebody feel important in that way. That's a great tip that she just added. I would say that one thing I didn't hear, or forgive me if somebody mentioned it, is of course the traditional listing presentation, going there of the preparation to sell your home and so forth. But a lot of times what I see now is virtual staging and of course conceptual renderings. So say if a home basically has the ability, or it's not at its highest and best use of what it is, being able to have kind of the ability to be able to show them that, as an example, we just listed a ranch home that was on a really big piece of property, and we had a conceptual rendering for a home that was pretty comparable, and basically we worked with an architect and was able to get a conceptual rendering done to give somebody the vision of what the highest and best use would be for it. So that kind of all the people we went, there was 12 people went on a listing appointment, and that was the one thing that separated us from everybody else.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, that differentiator, guys. Think about that. So, Glenn, I want to talk a little bit about goals, setting goals, and what motivates you when you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. So, how do you set goals? How often are you looking at that goals? And then what is your big motivator?
That's a great question. There's just so many. To be able to nail it down to the most important, I would have to say it would be just a presence of business, and people want to work with people that are successful. I always say this, for somebody's most valuable asset, something they've been paying off for 10 to 30 years. I feel like they have to be able to have that trust. It's extremely difficult to be able to be somebody's first, and I would say the thing to separate is to be able to keep going and be able to kind of build your own resume consistently. So like to be able to wake up and keep going is just to be able to continue to try to be as successful as you can.
And how often are you setting goals? Is that something that you do every year? Is it something that you do monthly? What does that look like?
Definitely more yearly than monthly. It's goals, but it depends. Actual financial goals is probably yearly. When it comes to actual goals of trying to be able to have stuff in the pipeline or following up with is definitely more monthly, where I like to do an Excel spreadsheet and kind of keep a list of anything that we have kind of cooking in a way to be able to follow up with. That's kind of how my goals are. As a financial goals, that's definitely more of a yearly concern. And, you know, of course, trying to be able to make Icon again or be able to, you know, cap at a certain time of the year. That's kind of where I feel like the goals are set in the way that I'm sure everybody has the same.
Yeah, that's nice. Capping and Icon are good little check marks along the way for sure. Andrea, can you talk a little bit about goals, how you work with goals, and then what motivates you when you don't feel like it?
Yes, sure. I do love my goal setting. So I have a life list goal that I'm looking at every day of the different categories of family and work, recreation, and then contribution. So I have kind of that list that I stay focused on, just looking at it every day, and then time blocking according to that. So when I get up and I don't feel like doing anything, I'm just doing it anyway. I mean, it's like my calendar says I got to do this, so I got to do that. And for me, it's again back to the mindset when it's like that hour. I think it was Glenn talking about having those calls every day. On my calendar, it says make someone's day instead of I got to make calls for this hour from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That is my appointment. So it's an appointment. I have to show up. I have to be there, whether I want to or not, whether I feel like it or not. It's my job. And if I don't show up, I don't get paid. So I kind of have that mindset. And then, but having the focus on the client and who I'm talking to, I'm making their day. I'm not asking them for things. It's not about me. It's about them. What's going on in their world, their family, their house, their whatever is going on. So having the time block, I think, is critical, and taking the focus off of us, because it's not about us, it's about them. So
good. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that, you know, it's our job. It's not optional, right? And I always like to think, like, if my client saw me right now, would I feel good about what they see?
Right. Yeah. If you don't show up, if you
Yeah.
don't show up, you lose your job. So
Yep. I like that. Scott L., what does your goal setting look like? And then what motivates you when you don't feel like working?
I unfortunately am a bit of an anomaly. I'm a workaholic in the worst sense of the word. My goal setting is mainly finding time for myself or my family because all I really focus on is business. That being said, that doesn't mean that I don't think there's not room for improvement. Listen to the last two speakers speak. One of the most difficult things for me right now is, in a lot of ways, I've almost reached my own glass ceiling that I've created for myself, almost a prison, because I rely too heavily on myself. So my goals now are actually engaging as much as I can in the tools that EXP is giving me and talking to other people to learn to do what I originally came here to do, was to build out a business, not just be a salesperson. So as goals exist, my goal, what my goal setting looks like now, is just to learn more. I can't tell you how much I think I've given up in life based off the fact that I do constantly get up with a drive to make myself work or go to the gym or do whatever I have to do. In my first year, I was in the top 5 of the one real estate brokerage and continue to do that. It didn't take me long to reach icon status once I joined EXP. But the goals that I'm now learning to set, and as I sit here, I'm taking notes on what everybody's saying, because the things that I need to do and the goals that I need to set are the ones that I don't know I need to set yet. So it's actually in learning from other people, and that is my biggest goal right now.
Yeah, I love your honesty and vulnerability. I was in a very similar boat, and I had to set goals because I was a bad husband and a mediocre father for a little bit, and I was not okay with that. And everything's got a cost, right? And we've got to try to find balance. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Scott, where are you at with goals, and what motivates you when you don't feel like working?
I'll start with the last part first. There is just some days I don't feel like working, and I piss the day away. I don't work like I probably should. And then there are days when, yeah, just stuff needs to get done. I kind of work off of lists more than like a schedule. Hey, there's certain things I need to get accomplished today. And so I just tick them off the list. And then as far as my goals are concerned, I mean, it's interesting. We have these goal strategies the beginning of every year. And I don't really think anything's changed in the last decade. I mean, there's only so many ways to get business. And, I try and refine those every year and adapt to new little strategies here and there. But it's 90% the same. I mean, I'm more of I don't worry about GCI. I don't care how many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars worth of properties I've sold. To me, it makes no difference whatsoever. I do set transaction goals though. If you sell $100 million house, or I sell 10 $10 million houses, I'm a better agent than you are if you only sold one house. And so I look at it as far as transactions go. And I kind of look at the calendar and say, okay, January is a little bit slow. Like this year, my goal is 58. And it goes from January to December. It goes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, and then it starts to descend 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, and then 2 in December. And so I kind of look at the year and be like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to do 10 in January probably, but I can probably do 7 or 8 in May and June. And so I kind of just figure out how many I think I'm capable of every month and total it at the end. And then for me, the last thing I'll say on the goals is that what motivates me for my goals is a personal capacity. I know that I can do more than 20. I know that I can do more than 40. I'm not sure that I could do 100. So, I mean, I don't stress about doing 100. So I try and pick a number that I'm capable of doing, that I know I have the personal capacity to hit. And then the only thing that really bums me out if I don't hit a goal is if I know, like I didn't hit my March goal that we just passed, and I know that I took my foot off the gas. I know I was a little bit lazy in some areas, and that disappointed me. But April 1, it's a new month, start of a new quarter, and all you can do is press forward.
Yeah, we can't let that stuff weigh us down because we're gonna miss sometimes, right? Like goals aren't meant to be. If you hit them every time, your goals probably aren't awesome. They're probably very mediocre, and who wants that? Okay, one character trait about Scott Z that makes him an icon agent. What is the one character trait that makes you in business?
I'm a grinder. I don't take no for an answer. I don't try not to let deals die. I'm always trying to find a way to resurrect a deal if it's going down, or work with a seller, or sometimes you got to battle a seller, sometimes you got to battle another agent. Sometimes you got to metaphorically slap a buyer upside the head. I'm just a grinder. I mean, I find a way to get deals done. I find a way to find deals. I door knock. I call for sale by owners. I door knock expireds if I have to. Just kind of like a dog with a bone, trying to find a deal. And I mean, like I said earlier, some of my business is referral. That's great. The phone rings, bing, bang, boom, you do a deal. And some days I'm 7 calls deep on a for sale by owner and finally get the listing. So that's what I guess the short answer is I'm just a grinder.
Yeah, in that business model, you'll never have a dead year. I mean, if you create business every year, you'll never have a dead year. That's awesome. Scott L., what's your one thing about you that helps you to become an icon?
It's a hard question. Honestly, I would have to say, just to copy Scott's answer, grinding. The extra time that I put in. I've set schedules that I work every day. I agree again with Scott. I don't necessarily work from a goal base, but a list of things that I want to accomplish every single day. But I find some of the most valuable time that I've ever set aside to talk to people is when most people are watching TV at night. I don't watch a lot of TV, and the one thing that I'll do is I'll set up calls with people between 7 and 10 p.m. Some of those calls can go for 10 minutes. Some of those calls can go for 2 or 3 hours. And the fact of the matter is I would likely be wasting that time. My kids are in bed anyhow, wasting that time watching sitcoms or something like that. But the relationship that I've created with people, actually talking to them through their concerns and their worries when they're probably sitting there biting their nails and watching TV and freaking out anyhow, that grind set has put me into a place where people just, I'm unparalleled to other agents. So I think going the extra time, going overtime, and actually working those hours is really what got me to icon status.
Yeah, that's cool. Excuse me. Andrea, one thing about you that makes you an icon.
Oh, that's so hard. I just had to run around and ask in my office what they said. I'm going to say positive because you said that before. I think just the mindset, having that positive mindset and staying focused on that and not listening to negative stuff, not letting negative in.
It is so valuable. The undervalued skill set is staying positive. So good. Glenn, what is your one thing that makes you an icon?
I would have to say, going back to what I was saying before about kind of client relationships and kind of always consistently giving anyone you're working with the feeling that you're putting their best interests in front of yours. And that's really, the main thing. And just trying to just be different in every way. That's really what it is. And on top of what one of the Scots said before, when it comes to just not giving up, I feel like that sometimes is a gift and a curse. Where I'll just have a problem letting go.
Yeah, commitment's a big one. I mean, that can go both ways. And something that I've learned is, like, if you look at amazing agents, they're either amazing at relationships, amazing at working harder than everybody else, or they're amazing at having systems that are better than everybody else. So pretty much the three ways to do it. And we've got to figure out where we fit, because we don't want to spend our time doing something that we hate, right? We want to enjoy work. It's a lot of time. Okay. I think we're getting close, but I don't know the schedule. So I'm just going to keep talking until somebody tells me to be quiet. Okay. Someone had talked. Are we there, Brian? You let me know.
Yeah, we're still here, TJ.
Okay, perfect. We got some time. As long as we got time, I'll talk. So you tell me when. So, Andrea, you had mentioned client events. And can you talk a little bit about what those look like, what those cost, and what your return is?
Oh, absolutely. We, and I like to pretend that I came up with this idea, but I totally did not. But in November, we have a gratitude gathering, and that's over the years grown into a larger event. But it started with just giving away like pumpkin pies. We would have like 5 in our office and invite the 10 clients we closed for the year and invite them to come get a pie to take to their family for Thanksgiving. It's always the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It's grown. I think we had close to 100 pies this year. And now it's a whole dinner, and we have live music and all of the things. So what's very cool is growing those over the years, seeing the clients that like know each other, and this is the time of year they see each other, and everybody wants to be included. They like to be a part of that. So that's super cool. I want to say it ends up 3,000 to 4,000 all in, because we get in a venue and everything. But it's hard to put a return on that. I think we had 4 to 5 close after the event. But they are previous clients. It's just staying connected to them. So that's one. The second one is an ice cream social. That's super easy. Just at a local ice cream shop, having it there. They just come in, order a scoop of ice cream. For me, it's more about the invitation than how many come. But I think we had 100 people come to that, maybe less. I don't know. And it was like $200. I mean, it was very reasonable. They come with their kids. It's hot here in Phoenix, Arizona, so it's in July, and that's a great time. And then we just have a variety of different ones. We have pizza parties before the Super Bowl. Come get your pizza to take to your Super Bowl event, or flower arranging, or different things like that. So we try to get more creative as the time goes on. And we do have a gal on staff that is our WOW experience leader. So she's in charge of getting all those put together. But yeah, it just keeps clients connected and kind of keeps them in your fold, and like, everybody wants to be a member, so it's like, these are our members. You have a membership card to the Crouch Group.
You got it. Everybody loves feeling exclusive, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's good. And one of the things that I want to point out too, if you're a newer agent or you're doing 5 deals a year, like, obviously you're not going to spend thousands of dollars, but what I used to do, I would pair up with other agents. So we might have 3 different agents that do one client event. It makes it look like you have more business. You're getting a lot of pictures. So like, sometimes we need to think outside the box, right? And
Yes.
Don't let I'm new keep me from working and getting creative. Okay, so look, guys, we've got 2 minutes. That gives us you each 30 seconds. One thing, I'll start with Scott Z, and then we'll go back. One thing that a new agent needs to start doing today to build their business in 90 days.
I think, if I could just pick one, and I would go on social media and I would start having conversations with the people that you follow and that follow you in your DMs. I would just start having conversations. It doesn't have to be about real estate. Hey, how's it going? Go to their page. Hey, I see you were just on a cruise. Tell me about that. I think the more conversations that you can have, and a really easy way to do it is through direct message on Instagram or Facebook. The conversation will naturally turn to real estate, and I think that's a great way. And then if I could maybe elaborate just a bit more on the social media side, I think that we're too afraid sometimes just to ask. Get on social media, get on your stories, and just ask for business. There's lots of creative ways you can do it, but I would say don't be afraid to ask.
So good. Scott, one thing that you would tell a new agent to start doing today?
Stop being shy. And to expand on what Scott Z was saying, you are now a business. You need to advertise. It doesn't matter what you do in this world. If you're, selling haircuts or you're selling stocks, you need to advertise that you exist. So whether you can do that for free, which there's a million different platforms to do, just understand, don't be shy, put yourself out there. And again, to extend on what Scott said before, ask for that business, literally put it out there, make sure that people are aware that you're an option for them. There's nothing more heartbreaking than somebody going with somebody else because you weren't promoting yourself, which is pretty much free nowadays.
So good. Okay, we got like 15 seconds, guys. Andrea, nail it. One thing.
Talk to people. Don't be invisible.
Perfect. And Glenn, last comment. One thing. What would you say?
I would say the best thing would be truly is to understand the process and to treat it like a business and always be prepared.
Perfect. And we have a great mentor program at this company. You can reach out to Icons, use your tools. Guys, it was an absolute honor. And thanks for listening. And most importantly, thank you to the panel for sharing openly and honestly. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank you all for watching out there in the audience today. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash that like button. TJ, thank you so much for moderating. And I will see one of the Scotts here next week and Andrea next week. Make sure you guys tune in every Friday, 8:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you are an icon in the audience and you're in an active benefit year, I'm going to drop a little present for you for watching today. All that you need to do is fill out this survey and you can get a couple of points for your cultural. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.